Step into the captivating world of the Behind the Curtain podcast, where your dynamic hosts, John Dyer and Dr. Mohamed Saleh, bring together a wealth of 60 years of combined experience in healthcare and manufacturing. Join us every week as we delve into intriguing topics, weaving unscripted conversations that promise to take you on an unpredictable and enlightening journey. Gain valuable insights for your continuous improvement adventure as we navigate uncharted territories with enthusiasm and expertise. Welcome to a podcast that goes beyond the ordinary, unraveling the mysteries behind the curtain of knowledge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Curtain. I'm one of your hosts, John Dyer, and with me is Dr. Mohamed Saleh. And we're continuing our discussion on employee engagement. And today, we're going to talk about two-way communication. How does information get passed up the chain, and how does it get passed down the chain? What are the different techniques that companies use to try to make sure everyone in the organization is as well informed as possible? So to start us off, Mohamed, why don't you share with us some of the techniques that you've seen where organizations have tried to improve their two-way communication?
You know, this is really getting to the heart of organizational design. And every organization, based on the context, it does change the answer to how best to approach it. There are, I would say, common organizational design elements that could be leveraged. And I'll just name three right now that I think might be helpful. The first one is, from a top-down communication standpoint, like a monthly message where the senior leadership team recaps the last month on how they did in a transparent way, and then kind of looks out for the next 4 weeks. What are they planning to do? And that kind of cascades itself down to the whole chain of command all the way to the front lines. At least in this model, it allows the front line to know what are the leaders reflecting on from last month, even if it went bad, and what are they going to do about it this month. So I would say that is a good vehicle. However, this vehicle is more of a telling vehicle. It doesn't really listen to the front lines. It kind of just informs the front lines. But a lot of times, one of the things that we see in surveys is that employees don't know what's going on in the company. And so that would at least mitigate that to some degree. The other one is, if you look at your tiered huddles, if you have tiered huddles in your organization, that is a very powerful, I would say, engine. Because when you look at daily management systems in the tiered huddles, if used appropriately, there's so many benefits that your performance engine will gain from that. And most companies that I have witnessed, when they start looking at daily management, if the mindset isn't there, then it's a scrutiny tool. And they want to push things through the tiered huddles down to the front lines. Now, you could use in the announcement section that monthly message that I talked about. But I feel like one of the most important things in tiered huddles is looking at how do you listen to what the employees have to say. And so the vehicle has to be designed in a way that both listens and then allows for the top to support.
So just real quick, for those people who may not be familiar with tiered huddles, can you kind of describe what that looks like?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So like at a front line, I would say it's like a team leader with the frontline team members. Let's call it that. And in that huddle, we'll reflect on like, how did we do yesterday? What are we going to do different today? And we plan for what we're going to do about it today and what could we improve upon. I would say that's level one or tier one. My levels of tiers, at least, is the people closest to the work are the highest priority. So they're level one. Then you go into a level two. And then level two becomes more of a supervisor with the team leader. And that in that dynamic, it's more of, hey, what's the target that we're trying to hit? And understanding that target, how are we doing performance wise? And just like any problem, if there's a gap between our performance and where we are today, what is the main causes from that? And do we understand the main causes? And how do we get to the root cause of that? And usually in that, it's like, what's our next step? Then we go to a higher level, and that's more like the manager with the supervisor. And the dynamic of that huddle completely morphs. And in that one, I'm looking at it from more of a perspective of like, what was the expectations from your coaching to the team that reports to you? Because at that point, it's less about metrics and more around execution of leader standard work and understanding what are some of the rituals that we were doing and how are you coaching these individuals to mitigate those gaps, and understanding what's actually happening, understanding what did we learn from that, and then from that come out with what's our next coaching step to those supervisors and team leads. And then it keeps going up and all the way until the CEO. And usually, it's a cadence approach where the front line, tier one is like, say, I'm just going to make it up for a second, from 8 to 9. Then tier two is from like 10 to 11. Then tier three is like from, 1 to 2. And then tier four is from 3 to 4. But what it's supposed to be, a rapid escalation process. So that if in the middle of those tiers, you weren't able to resolve the problem, it gets escalated to the next level. And then they have a chance to remove those barriers for you. And then it's the next level. And then they have a chance to remove that barriers for you. And as it goes up the chain of command, you're trying to understand how could I better support? So I'm listening from the front line what's happening, and then I'm seeing what I could do to remove that barrier. And it's also a coaching vehicle, because then in that process, I'm looking at, hey, is this information coming to me because of fear? And do I have to act differently and behave differently and listen differently? Or is this because they're missing certain capabilities? And if they're missing certain capabilities, then that's my coaching opportunity to look at the next steps and how they could mitigate those gaps. So that's really when we talk about tiered huddles, that is the vehicle. But it allows for this two-way communication to go up and down the chain of command.
So again, the only way that's going to be productive is if the culture embraces the whole concept of blame the process, not the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of Dr. Deming's quotes. That's one of my favorites. A bad process or a bad system will beat a good person every time.
Yep.
So you got to, in order to have that kind of open dialogue and exchange of information, you got to make sure there's no fear that people are going to reprimand you for sharing bad news, right?
Yeah,
Otherwise, the tiered system doesn't work very well.
100%, 100%. And this is for if people have daily management systems or they don't have daily management systems. When you look at your tiers, I think one of at least my main criterias is, if you're looking at two-way communication, don't make it so hard for information to go all the way to the top. And so stop adding layers. And so, the best two-way communication is the most flat organization. When you have this huge hierarchy that is like, 8 layers from the bottom to the top, it's going to take forever for that information to get to the top. And it's probably might be distorted by the time it gets to the top. And there'll be many clots along the way of information as you look at that process. And so I truly advise, hey, how many tiers do you really need? And it's not based on, like, sometimes a team lead could go to the middle managers straight. Hey, but there's 3 tiers here. Yeah, but could they have a different role? They don't all have to have a huddle, or they don't all have to have a visual board. Maybe some of them could huddle around a board that already exists, and it could be multifaceted board. But the more layers you add to the tiered huddles, the worse it is for any organization.
It's like the old telephone game, right?
It is.
Where you tell someone something and someone then tells it to the next person, and when you get to the end, it's completely different than what the first person said. And this can happen with this tiered system if you're not careful, because I may be sitting in on a 10-minute stand-up meeting on that tier 1 huddle, and then I have to absorb that and take that to the next tier
Yep.
and regurgitate that, and it may be something slightly different. By the
Yep.
time it gets to the CEO, it's completely different.
Yeah, and you see the disconnection a lot of times where the CEO thinks the world is great and the front line are miserable, and or vice versa, and people don't understand. Like I just had, conversations with people that, hey, they thought the company was doing extremely well, but then there was decisions made on top that made it feel like there's this level of urgency that we're in a lot of trouble. But I thought we were doing really well, and obviously something had gotten broken throughout the chain of command for one people's reality think that they're great, while the other reality is that we're in a lot of trouble.
So I think, in the tiered system, my experience is that the information flows up, but not necessarily down. And the information that does flow down tends to be negative, right? It tends to be, hey, we screwed this up, or this customer is upset with us, or we're missing our productivity goals. We're in the red on this and that. Versus, think how many organizations flow down things like, this is going to be our vision for the next 2 years. This is our inspirational vision of where we want to go as an organization, and we need your help getting there. Sharing information like that.
Yep.
In my experience, that's pretty rare.
It is. It is. It's, is your daily management system a tell and respond vehicle? The top tells you and you react and respond and defend. Or is your daily management system an engaging tool that listens and then supports? And if you couple it with that monthly message is more around, hey, here's how we did, and here's what we want to do in the future, and we need your help. And so it's a very different dynamic. It's not a scrutiny tool. And so it's I think from a two-way communication standpoint, that funnel allows people to speak and tell and be willing to have the information go out through those chain of command.
Yeah.
I think
so.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, so my experience with the tier 1 meetings, right? Because getting those started can be pretty intimidating. The supervisors are like, I don't know how to facilitate this, or you run into the issue of, we don't have time, right? Oh my goodness, you're talking about cutting out, productivity time that's going to impact our ability to get product out the door. We can't afford to have a 10 or 15-minute stand-up meeting. And it's like, well, but you can't afford not to. Especially if you can also couple that with an overlap between shifts, so that you can take that time to also share, information that can help the next shift start off successfully. But so the cadence, you probably have something similar. The cadence that I'm used to is in that 10 to 15-minute stand-up meeting, we start off with safety. Is there any unsafe condition that anyone has picked up on? Quality is next. Is there any quality issue that you're wrestling with that needs to be shared so that we can get resources applied to it? The schedule, for what the rest of the day is going to look like. These are the jobs we're trying to get done today. And then finally, some sort of time to talk about improvement ideas, right? Does anybody have any ideas of how we can make the process run smoother, better? And let's capture that on a flip chart. What I usually like to do is, usually have your tier board that has these different areas laid out. But I always like to have just a simple flip chart in the area and actually write the ideas for improvement on that flip chart, with the understanding that only the person who came up with that idea has the power to strike off that idea, either because the idea has been implemented, or because someone has done the research and has come back to that person and explained why it can't be done, or what it can't be done today. maybe sometime in the future. But so only the person who came up with the idea can strike it off. And it's a great visual tool when people walk by to say, God, okay, how many ideas are on the flip chart? How many of them have been, struck and through, to give us a sense for, progress that's being made.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this gets into too, like how many ideas in each area should be active at the same time from a bandwidth standpoint. I think the only thing I would add to what you just illustrated, I also like to start my huddles with that whoever the leader is for that huddle, recognizing someone from yesterday who they caught in the act of excellence, highlighting certain key behaviors that they notice that person's demonstrating, not just talking about like what they did as their job, but like actually say, what this person helped this person out yesterday. And I just want to recognize teamwork, so that people understand what behaviors you value as a leader. So I would say everything else I do identically. And then as an accountability, sometimes I'll add to, hey, these were the rituals I was supposed to do. And did I do them or not? Like a Gemba walk or a waste walk or an employee round or a 5S audit or something like that. The last vehicle that I find that is helpful, but it's also a little bit of a telling tool, is having like newsletters and Hall of Fame boards and like quality circle like presentations where the senior leaders could actually round on the front line and kind of hear some success stories, either through the newsletter or through quality forums, or coming to the executive team like meetings and kind of demonstrating, hey, here's our full circle award, or here's a quality improvement we made last week and we kind of want to share it with you guys. So I feel like that helps with two-way communication too. It's a different vehicle. It's more of a conference feel to it. But it allows to merge those two layers together a little bit more too.
Another thing that I've seen done pretty successfully, again, this is after the culture's been changed to the point where fear has been driven out.
Yeah.
But you were talking about how the information could get lost as it goes up the tiers. One company I worked with, the executives were so on board with all this that every day, every executive would pick a particular tier 1 meeting to attend.
Yeah.
And they would change it every day.
Observations are huge.
Yeah. And that way they could hear it straight from the people, how's it going? And then if there's a message they need to get across, they can talk directly to that group. Hey, here's what we're working on. What do you think?
It's a great strategy, and it's a great ritual too. Huddle observations. If you're able to create a senior leadership cadence where everyone goes everywhere, and kind of touches all the areas, I think that's huge. How many areas have you worked in, John, that the front line have never seen the CEO, don't know who their vice president are, don't even sometimes know who their directors are. And so like I think that speaks to a lack of two-way communication. It's not just information going up and down, but also being able to have a relationship with your front line, I think is a huge point.
Think about it, right? For the executive, it might only take, 30 minutes out of their day to do that. But, and again, the excuse is, well, we're too busy and we don't have time. It just needs to be made a priority to say, hey, this isn't optional. Every day, pick a tier 1 meeting and go to it, and now again, you'd have to know when when those tier 1 meetings take place, where they take place. And I think one of the pushbacks is the fear. I don't know how to talk to certain people, or I'm not sure where that is in the plant because I don't go in the plant very often. Or they are going to unload on me. It's going to become a gripe session. And
for all those reasons, you should do it.
Right. You should do it. But that's what people say is, why they wouldn't say that's why they're not going to do it. It'll be, oh, I'm just too busy.
Yeah.
or they'll do it for a week or two and then it gets lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's got to be a priority. You know, make it one of the performance review. Okay,
Yeah.
how many tier 1 meetings did you do this month?
As we come to a close and look at how do we flatten an organization and reduce information clotting is really the core takeaway here. Um, I have seen an organization where the third tier were being measured only on how many gimbal walks did you do today, and then their definition was primarily waist walks. How many one-on-one coaching sessions have you had? And how many huddle observations did you see? And that was it. They had no other metrics that they had to look at. When I asked them, like, why are you just focusing on these three things? Oh, and then problem solving session was a fourth one too. Did you engage in? But they were saying, if you do these four, that you'll get the output. And so because that for them was really as that layer, that's all you should be responding. Don't worry about the numbers. You want to go know the numbers? Go to the huddle observations. You'll see the numbers. You don't need to see the numbers on your board.
Because it's cause and effect, right? If we do the right things, the effect should be better metrics.
Yeah.
Versus what most organizations do is they track the metrics and hope to use that to change behaviors. But again, another Dr. Deming famous quote is, management by objectives. It's like looking in the rear view mirror and trying to drive the car.
Yep.
Because those metrics have already happened.
Yep.
They're already done.
Yep.
So it's, hey, what do we need to do differently on the behavior side?
Yep.
And if we do the right things, we have to have faith that the metrics will eventually improve.
And in the end of the day, what you just highlighted doesn't allow that layer to ever weaponize numbers. Right. Because you mistake proofed it. You're saying you don't look at numbers. Just, hey, here's the habits that you have to create the rituals. Go do these and watch the numbers change. But if I give you just the numbers, I don't matter how good of a leader you are, you might scrutinize by accident, or it's not mistake proofed. And so I love it. I love it.
Well, next week we'll get into, we're still talking about communications, but what if those things aren't in place? What if there's still fear in the organization? What happens if the metrics are used in a negative way?
Absolutely.
That's what we'll get into next week. So I hope everybody does well, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
As we draw the curtains on another fascinating episode, we wanted to express our gratitude for joining us on this enlightening journey. If you're hungry for more captivating and thought-provoking discussions with John Dyer and Dr. Mohamed Saleh, hit that subscribe button to ensure you don't miss a beat. Until next week, keep exploring, stay inquisitive, and stay inspired. See you on the next Behind the Curtain adventure.